Donald Trump is by nature a gambler. This is a man who has been bankrupt 6 times in his life, declared bankruptcy. Good Lord. How do you manage such a thing? That's almost a business model for him. So he'll gamble one more time. And if it doesn't work, well, then, I'll go out and I'll figure out a way to put a happy face on the dead rat. Look, this is a man that put his face on the figure of Jesus Christ. If we were rational, we would never have attacked Iran. Why did we attack Iran? We attacked Iran because Israel and its agents in the United States, worth billions of dollars, demanded that Trump attack Iran. Why did Trump acquiesce? Because he was told that this would be short, sharp, and decisive, that after a few days, the regime would collapse and everything would fall like ripe fruit into his lap. Well, that turned out to be wrong. So suddenly he was compelled to start a continuous bombing campaign. That failed. And so we opted for a ceasefire. Why did we opt for a ceasefire? Well, we had to bring in more firepower. We had to bring in more ammunition. We had to bring in more missiles. We wanted to bring in more Marines and airborne troopers, ostensibly for the purpose that you were discussing earlier, seizing some islands or maybe some other points on the ground, or to fly around Iran looking for enriched uranium. I don't know. That didn't go very well the last time we tried it. The bottom line is you're assuming someone is being rational. If Donald Trump were rational, Thursday night a week ago, he would have come out and said, I've given a lot of thought to what we've done and I can't go any further. Military power is the wrong instrument to solve this problem. So I am disengaging our forces from active combat against Iran. We are going to seek out intermediaries that can bring us together and hopefully find a resolution. Well, why didn't he do that? Because he is hostage to Israeli demands and to the demands that Israel's agents in the United States are making. And their demand is very straightforward. First, they wanted regime change. Regime change failed. Having failed to achieve regime change, you then set out to do what? Destroy Iran. Multiple possibilities exist in Donald Trump's mind, but let's talk about Donald Trump for a moment. Donald Trump lives and dies by his mentor's 3 rules of life. His mentor, the man who seems to have had more influence over shaping the character and mentality of Donald Trump than anybody else, is a man named Roy Cohn. Now, what did Roy Cohn impart to Donald Trump? What are the 3 rules? Rule number 1, attack, attack, attack. In other words, be on the offensive. From the moment you recognize that you're in competition or in a contest of power, in any sort of conflict, you attack, attack, attack. Okay, secondly, what do? You deny, deny, deny. In other words, whatever you're accused of, true or not, whatever they say about you, good or bad, especially if it's bad, obviously, you deny, deny, deny. You never admit anything. And then finally, what do? You twist whatever the outcome turns out to be into some form of victory for you personally. Now, those are the 3 basic rules that govern the way Donald Trump thinks. If you're looking for a quick resolution here, it's not coming. In other words, this blockade will continue indefinitely at this point. Can we do that? Well, it all depends on your perspective. I think it's a dumb idea because if it were in the Caribbean, it would be easy. When you're close to home, you're close to your logistical support base, you have harbors where you can replenish, refit, rearm quickly, and then go back into action. That's easy. We're a long, long way from home, and everything has to be flown in or shipped in over an enormous distance. That's why they brought in more light infantry, I suppose, I think, because they figure, well, we're going to need more than that. We have to be able to perhaps launch a feint against one island while we take 2 others. I mean, there could be all sorts of things under discussion. But at the same time, we have now resupplied the fleet. We've resupplied the air forces. Remember, some of our air forces will actually fly from Diego Garcia. Some may fly all the way from Mississippi and Louisiana. And some will come from Germany. And then you will have some that will come as far away as perhaps the Horn of Africa. The bottom line is this is a very difficult thing to do for any power in the world right now. And we are putting everything on the line. That's the problem. We're putting everything on the line. And Donald Trump sees himself as being on the line. So what's he going to do? He's going to attack. What we have done, what Mr. Netanyahu has done, and insisted that we join him in doing, is setting in motion a wave of anti-Semitism that is greater now than at any point since the interwar period.
Yeah.
That's a great achievement. That's what Mr. Netanyahu has done. Now, there are some sober-minded Israeli Jews who've pointed this out. There are certainly Jews in this country, and you've talked to Jeffrey Sachs. I'm sure if he were here, he would say that's exactly right. The Jewish community always lives in a state of perpetual paranoia about anti-Semitism. And their predisposition is to reach out and destroy anyone they suspect of being an anti-Semite. I think that's part of the problem. In other words, Israel will only be safe as a state, and Jewish international interests will only be safe when all of Israel's enemies are destroyed. If they can't be destroyed, then they have to be subjugated. Take the map of the Greater Israel Project. Look at the map. What does it tell you? That they are creating a very large state in which anyone who is not a Jew is subservient to them or doesn't exist anymore. That's the Greater Israel Project. That's the Amalek solution. That's Netanyahu. I see no evidence that Mr. Netanyahu has abandoned those goals. He may come to a temporary ceasefire with Lebanon to satisfy short-term strategic interests, but it doesn't end the war. The war for him and for the Jewish state is permanent. It is now a permanent state of affairs, and that's the way it's going to stay. Now, what is Donald Trump going to do about that? What do they know about Donald Trump that Donald Trump doesn't want to be made public? What kind of influence do they have over him besides simply enriching him? You know, he's made over $1 billion during his first year in office. I mean, that's unheard of. That did not happen during his first term in office, but it happened during this term. Now, we know that Washington is a stagnant pool of corruption. That's not a mystery. And we've had J.D. Vance, the vice president, actually state that, saying you would be shocked at the level of corruption inside Washington. We all know that. But politicians, even the worst ones, and we have some of the worst that I think we've ever had, want to survive. They have this instinct for survival. And increasingly, as this goes on, they are going to be interested in disengaging from it. At some point, a decision will have to be made by the big donors that bought the election and the people opposing or supporting Donald Trump regarding whether he is now more of a liability than an asset. If they determine he's more of a liability than an asset, then I think you will see the cabinet intervene under the 25th Amendment and remove him from office. But putting J.D. Vance into the president's office is not a big deal for the Israel lobby. He's very much part of that, and he's very much beholden to them. So I don't think they're terribly concerned about that, but I don't think they've reached the point yet where they've decided that Donald Trump is more of a liability than an asset.